and you go and then stand in front of your smart mirror in the bathroom, which gives you your age, your blood oxygen, your happiness rating. You've then got your smart shower that's set to just the right temperature that you want it. You've got your humanoid robot that brings you the towel. You've got the chef arms in the kitchen making the eggs, and the smart fridge has already ordered some eggs that are coming in by drone from Woolies. And, then you've got your robot dog that doesn't need to go for a walk, but wants you to take it for a walk because it's part of your healthcare plan, your personalised healthcare dog. So this
in all of this
passiveness, it's all already here, just not evenly distributed, Jill.
Mad for life, making a difference for a lifetime. Join me, Jill Hicks, as I take us on a quest to learn, to grow, to understand more about ourselves and how we can be the healthiest version and be able to do all the things we want to do for a lifetime. I'll be talking to the scientists, the thinkers, the doctors, the doers, the practitioners, the people that are leading the way in the areas that can improve our health, from our mind health to our body, to our soul, to how we contribute to the world. I'm really excited. This is 20 years in the making for me. Mad for life, making a difference for a lifetime. Welcome to Mad for Life, my dear friend Kath. Of course, to me, you're Kath, but you have this whole other life. You're Professor Dr. Catherine Ball, a scientific futurist. You're a best-selling author. You work across so many projects of emerging technologies. And what I love particularly about you is, whilst you are a fiend around emerging and tech futures, you always have the human at the core.
Mm-hmm.
And I devour your work and totally, continuously captivated by everything you produce. And we've been friends for about 10 years, so I've had a decade of just being completely in awe. So I'd like to start actually by saying thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for all that you can contribute to this world. And I know that there'll be so many people that have been inspired by your work, that have gone on to try and emulate, try and continue what you're doing. And perhaps you don't even get to hear about that. So thank you for being the icon that you are and the leader that you are. And thank you for making time for us at Mad for Life.
Well, Jill, coming from you, I'm going to sit here as a pool of tears, my friend. Oh. But I still remember when we met at the Telstra Business Women's Awards back in 2016, when I was handing my crown over to the next generation of women in business leaders. And I just remember sitting there thinking, I can't believe I'm breathing the same air as Jill Hicks. The humility to which you approach the world and the geopolitics that we're constantly swarmed by. You're not just an icon. You're a lighthouse, babe.
Oh.
Like, you've got to remember how important you are. Thank you for doing this podcast, thank you for having me. I've been really enjoying it so far. I'm never going to order a colonoscopy again without putting it in a French accent now. What do you need today? I'm having a colonoscopy.
We'll have to pick.
Iconic.
We'll have to pick a language to talk about the future in. Wonder what would that be? Cyborg?
It would probably be code. Yeah.
There we are.
Having said that, no, they say the future of English is actually more of an Asian mix. They refer to Singlish, So
Singlish.
Yeah.
There we are.
So having a more Indo-Pacific version of English. There you go.
Now, it's really difficult, I think, to talk about the future because it is about possible ideas. It is about things that seem plausible that could happen. But what is it that leads you to really work in this field? Is it things that gets under your skin enough that makes you angry or intrigued, or you can see that this can be done better? What takes you into that rabbit hole of working in future ideas?
Yeah, anger has got a lot to do with it. I sit as a person who's reasonably technically literate. I sit now as a mother of 2 small children, the daughter of an aging mother. And I sit there and I go, why haven't we got this? Why haven't we got that? The gap between capability and action when it comes to scalable technologies, the fact that there's a great quote by William Gibson, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed yet. That uneven distribution across socioeconomic and geopolitical lines really annoys me. It's almost like when you can see how good things could be, but you see that they're not that good.
So,
why aren't they there?
This is a utopia vision?
Well, it's very realistic vision. So what people have in other countries are stock standard things that other people in other countries don't have. And that's not just about socioeconomics or alleviation of poverty. That is one thing. But taking a reasonably rich Western country and looking at another reasonably rich Western country and still seeing this difference where you could actually have people living longer, happier, healthier lives, but the technology is just not scaling or not translating, or people aren't literate to ask for it. And that's what really frustrates me.
I'm sensing that there's a growing fear around the emergence of an artificial intelligence, and that can be in many things. And yet, whilst there is this fear, there's also a sort of increased usage. So it's this sort of funny relationship where on one hand, the things that most people would have in their everyday that is an artificial intelligence, they've become accustomed to, and yet something beyond that is to be feared. And I'm interested in your sense, I guess, in how do we navigate that? How do we rise into a place where we are in control of what we do today that informs what happens tomorrow?
So there's a real oxymoron about artificial intelligence.
Yes.
There are so many different types of AI that when you say AI, it's almost like saying countries on the planet, right? There are so many different ways in which AI is being used, people that are investing in it, people that are controlling it, and the culture of each of these different types of AI, even the generative AI platforms, you can say, well, Claude is Anthropic, and they refuse to sign up to the defense stuff, and now the Londoners want them there because the US are having a go at them, and the politics around saying no to the Department of War and what that means for that company. Then you've got OpenAI, which is Sam Altman, which is backed by Microsoft and is part of the Tech Bro network and has said yes to do certain things that other people have said no to. Then you've got Grok, which is Elon Musk. So if you're a Musk fan, then Grok is your AI of choice, right? Then there's Llama, which is Meta. So if you're a Meta fan and you like your Instagram and your WhatsApp and your Facebook, then maybe Llama is the AI that you prefer. My preferred AI is actually Google Gemini, and I'm not sponsored by Google. And I've been playing around with all of them, and I want to get more into Claude because I like the culture of Anthropic. I understand how powerful OpenAI is. I do use that as well. And in fact, I am yet to play with Grok and Llama, and it's probably me being a bit naughty here because I'm going to give some people advice right now, which is we need to get our hands dirty and play with these systems to see where they fall over and break.
But aren't they only as good as what we're asking them to do?
Prompt engineering, effectively, is that term. So yes, look, I mean, one of the areas of study I work in is cybernetics, and cybernetics can be defined as humans using a technology in an environment to solve a problem. That could be building a fish trap to have aquaculture. That's a cybernetic system. It could be using an AI to develop a personalized cancer vaccine for your dog, like the guy did in New South Wales. It could be a mum who's got a number of kids and sports teams and a really busy working week using Lovable to vibe code an app to organize her family's clothes washing schedule. Like, there are ways in which we can use these things to make our life better. But if we're not playing with them, then we're never going to know where the edges of them are or how to choose them. So have you ever played with Lovable? Have you developed an app in Lovable? I think you and I are going to have a little play on Lovable together, darling.
We'll take this offline.
I have, people are like, what's vibe coding? Vibe coding is where you use natural language like a chat window to ask an app. Lovable's the best. I love Lovable. I have actually vibe coded an app, and I'll tell you about that later as well. But being able to create an app that you can literally log into and use by talking to an AI system is how we vibe code. You literally just sit there asking questions, pushing the edges, making it fall over, organizing your sign in windows, talking about your databases. Like, so being able to be accessible to these technologies, everyone has access. I interviewed Mo Gaudat, who was one of the Google DeepMind, deep AI experts for the opening of South by Southwest Sydney last year. And he said to me, Catherine, one of the things that people forget about these AI systems is that you can rent IQ. So when we talk about human intelligence and artificial intelligence, we don't actually need to talk to them as two separate things, because you can actually rent IQ on a computer system to help you with the questions that you're asking in your head. So say, for example, with any of the AI systems you prefer as a large language model, so I might say I'm going to use Gemini, I can say to Gemini, I need you to be my chief marketing officer. I have no marketing qualifications at all, but you are going to be my chief marketing officer. I want you to look at all the best examples of how a chief marketing officer can take a book like my book, The Future of Sleep, and how you would market that and who you would target it to and which podcasts I need to go on and which TV shows I need to be on. And how did, Subtle Art of Not Giving an F become a bestseller? How did Atomic Habits become a bestseller? How do I write the next book that is the bestseller?
So in that process, I'm someone that's sitting here that doesn't even have a television. So it's kind of...
I very rarely very rarely watch television. You obviously watch me when I'm on the Today Show, though, Jill. Come on.
Yes, on my computer, of course. Of course I do. But how far until we start to see an intelligence that can preempt and start to say if I am this AI that's working with you in your marketing department, at what point will we see you come into your office, turn on your computer and say, good morning, how are you? And let's say you're calling me Sally. How are you, Sally? And then I reply back, I'm great, Kath. I've got a lot to do today. And they start to actually build their own agendas for things.
That exists. It's called agentic AI.
Right.
That already exists. Except Sally won't be switched on when I turn up at the office. Sally will have been working overnight while I was asleep. And Sally has her own team of agents that she's also working with that are also doing the things that Sally doesn't want to do. It's how you prompt engineer Sally to behave.
So at this point, then, where do we start to be reasonably fearful of that relationship becoming its own being?
So if you're thinking about general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and AI that will become self-aware, akin to sort of the Terminator movies and Skynet.
That's it.
Well, I've got a couple of thoughts about this. One is, if an AI actually became self-aware, do you think it would tell us? Knowing what it knows about humanity, do you think it would actually tell us that it was self-aware if it knew it was self-aware? Can we just pause there for a moment and go, I don't know the answer to that one because I don't work in AGI. All I know is there's a defense aspect to these technologies that we never really see. There's a counterterrorism aspect to these technologies that we never really see. The area of AGI that will be upon us will be from those defense sectors.
Yes.
Will be from the non-commercially driven, defense-driven, counterterrorism, counter-cyber security world. Though I have some folk that I talk to that think it's an inevitability. I have other folk that go, well, look, it's just never really going to get there because it's only ever going to be a machine. It's never going to be a biological entity. And so then you can have deep and philosophicals that we don't need to necessarily go into today about how do you define life? Yes. How do you define consciousness? And so we don't have a good definition for consciousness. Yeah. So I would ping pong that one straight back to you, Jill, and say, until you can define to me what consciousness actually means, I can't tell you whether or not we've got an AGI or when we're going to have an AGI.
Because I do a lot of pondering around, HI, of course, which is human intelligence, HCI, which is human creative intelligence, and HEI, human emotional intelligence. And I'm passionate about how we develop that language, that presence, particularly with our young people, that there is as much focus on that as there is artificial intelligences and people feeling that, well, what's the point of me going to university to study law if in 10 years' time lawyers will be absolute? And it's that I'm interested in, that emerging, and I think we it's like, how do we find a term for that? And is it the intelligence revolution? Is that what we're going to be facing?
I think we're in the middle of the
where humans
intelligence-
just
I love
say
that.
enough.
Enough, yes. To a certain extent. I think we're in the middle of the intelligence revolution, and I love that term. There's a book titled right there for anyone who's interested in grabbing hold of that and running with it. I think maybe we should write it. But the idea of augmenting human intelligence or applying human intelligence as well as using artificial intelligence and not using AI to actually switch off human intelligence is something that the best people and the brightest people are working with. So anybody who's thinking of studying law, I'd suggest you're not going to be obsolete anytime soon, because we're going to start seeing areas of law develop. And there will always be ways in which we can use technology to make law more cheap and more efficient. And all of us have a backlog.
And it's getting to the soul, though, isn't it, Kath? Of like if you're in a trial, and you're being represented by someone, they're using all of those human tactics to say, I'm appealing to your senses, and can we do that if it's Sally?
If it's Sally,
of the jury.
Well, Sally was trialled and her name was Compass. And this was a piece of AI that judges were supposed to use in the United States to decide whether or not people applying for parole should go back to prison or be given parole. And you can see how this is going to come undone. It is something that, unfortunately, by the way, if anyone listening to this is facing a sentencing, you always go for sentencing after lunch, not before lunch. People get harsher sentences when people are hungry. But also, judges have, in the US, they were starting to use this thing called Compass, and it was basically picking up on whether or not this person will be a risk if they go back into society or not. But unfortunately, all artificial intelligence systems are only as strong as the diversity and the humanity in full 360 hypercolor, technicolor that your database is from. Now, unfortunately, in Chicago, the database that was feeding this particular AI was obviously the police department's records, which meant a young man, an African-American man, came up for parole, had perfect record in prison, perfect parolee, computer says no. And when he asked why, the judge said, because the AI system said that you're going to be a risk, so you're going back into prison. So he sued. And he won, because no one should ever defer their intelligence-making capabilities or decision-making capabilities to a computer program. Another thing around this is the Aura rings and the Whoops and the wearables that people have. Yeah. There's a big thing now around women and the AI behind that. So, for example, your Aura are working on this. They've admitted it's a problem. They're trying to fix it. In your menstrual cycle, in your luteal phase, your core temperature goes up by 0.5 degree centigrade, which means, according to your Aura ring, you're actually sick, which means your recovery score is lower, but you're not actually sick. You're just a woman. And so we have all of these, AFL players and women AFL players and male AFL players, and all these like elite sports people relying on these pieces of technology to give them quantifiable, measurable and trackable scores. But the AI and the systems that are building those are still inferring things from a data set that may or may not represent them in a way that may or may not represent who they are.
So this tells us that there's still a place at the table for the human being.
There is only a place at the table for the human being. There is no place at the table for technology without the human being being there. And that is the cybernetics approach. We talk about humans in the loop, humans on the loop, humans are the loop. There's absolutely no way in which an AI system should be making a decision about someone's health metrics or someone's life or someone's mammogram or someone's scan or someone's blood results without having somebody who knows where the system can get it wrong and where the system can get it right.
Are we heading in that direction, though?
We are now facing a medical revolution where we have drug discovery, which will go from 20 years to 2 years for new drugs. It's amazing. So the Nobel Prizes last year, one of them was Google AlphaFold. So have you heard of Google AlphaFold? No. This, for me, is a prime example of where AI is good. Now, you'd love the way that this happened because it was a very human way in which this happened. So and they were all men, unfortunately, when I look back at the video. So I'm going to say these chaps around the table at Google were like, well, we can measure, we can basically build a map of the proteins that we want to build this map of. And one of them around the table says, well, can we just build a map of every single protein that could possibly exist? Now, bear in mind, the way proteins exist is restrained and constrained by the laws of physics. It's all to do with elements, atoms, bonds, etc., right? So there's rules, biochemical rules that cannot be broken because they are how life exists on this planet. And so what they did was they took all of the maths of how proteins could possibly exist and they created a map, and they did it in less than a week. They mapped the entire dictionary of all potential proteins. So that's all potential cancer treatments, all potential antibiotics, all potential poisons, all potential anything to do with proteins.
This then gives a real sense, doesn't it, that we could be looking at cure for diseases that haven't been able to have a cure.
Jill, by the end of this decade, if you and I touch base again on what's been cured between this conversation and January the 1st, 2030, we will be amazed at the diseases that will either be livable. So they're talking about cancer now as treating it as a livable disease. It will just be something that we live with rather than die from.
So if we're living longer,
yes,
we're designing ourselves to live longer.
We are.
We're creating technologies to support our longevity.
Yes.
With the pillar of legacy in mind, which is, how I like to talk about the why we've even existed.
Mm-hmm.
I think our legacy is a really important way to look back at, our why. Why did we do this? And the impact we've had. I love that we think about our young people, your boys, my daughter. I worry about the distraction that is, is it invented? Is it deliberate? But the distraction that's everywhere, and for me, I would just wish that part of our evolution within technology of being able to be ahead of disease, I'd love to be able to turn distraction off,
mm-hmm.
and helping the human evolve and rise with their intellect to be able to grow and create even more beyond our wildest, what we can imagine today.
You and I have both lived in London, for example. And I remember traveling on the tube and I remember traveling on buses. And I was almost like, if I have one more advert come in my face, I'm going to have a bit of a Harry Carey moment. Like I'm going to go.
Did it desensitize you though?
It didn't. So I was just very overwhelmed with it to the point where when earpods came out, like I would
yes.
I would be silencing the noise because it was just too much hyperstimulation. And Vivienne Westwood refers to these things as weapons of mass distraction. She wouldn't even allow radios playing in her creative studio and TVs. She wouldn't allow this. This is before interactive artificial intelligences where people are forming relationships with their AIs. 40% of Australians have spoken to an AI about their emotional issues. And that's okay.
Yeah.
If that means that you can then maybe get help, or the help that you would like to get you can't access. And so how we use technologies, is it a distraction or is it actually fulfilling a need that you've just not been able to fulfill before? But this is where I think about the boredom quotient. How often do my kids actually feel bored?
Do they?
And what is wrong with boredom?
Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, they are the iPad they are the pandemic kids, right? So that sort of constant need to keep them, entertained type thing.
Yeah.
But they still also, even now, when they've got the choice of an iPad, oh my God, this is going to sound terrible, but look, it's #pandemic parenting, right? They've got the choice of the Netflix, the Disney Plus, the iPad, the Nintendo Switch Lite, the Nintendo DS that we bought by accident. They've got Lego. They've got a big Batman cave. They've got all of these different toys and games that they can play. They still don't just sit absorbed into screens. They go and they play outside with the G.I. Joes. Yeah. They go and they play with the Legos. They fight with each other incessantly, like two boys under 8, you know this. They still find a way to switch off. They're not constantly attached to the PS5. They're still very much looking around. They're still reading books. We still talk about things. I take them to the museums. I make an active play to engage them in things. But you're very right in asking me, when was the last time they were actually bored? Not when they told me and whinged at me they were bored because they wanted the iPad. But when were they actually last? And you know when it is? It's when we go out into Mother Nature. And they are not necessarily bored, but they're sat in a place where there's peace. They're sat in a place where there's calm. And the ocean, I think, is where they get to do that meditative release. So what is boredom? What is distraction? And what is a waste of human capital, doom scrolling or going through social media? I'm actually quite glad that my kids will not know social media till they are at least 16. I'd say 18, really, if I could help it. Because I think we have recognized the harms that social media can do and how these companies are there to make money. They're not there to breed good mental health in teenagers. And so But again, until we know the damage that can be done, we didn't know how bad these things could be when we started our Facebook accounts 20 years ago. We didn't realise the implications of it.
And do you think that the manifesto for the human intelligence revolution should be written in a book?
There is a huge pushback to the rise of analog now in a digital world. So, I mean, if you go to any bookshop, there's still lots of books. There's still people buying books. I was sat next to a chap yesterday on the plane, and he and I were both reading I had a hardback book. He had a paperback book. He was reading Stephen Bradbury. I was reading about Goldeneye and Ian Fleming. There was a bloke over the aisle also with a book. And, my bookshelf is my to-read pile effectively. But again, this is me being, I'm not necessarily a normal human being. But all I know is my kids still love
Kathy,
books.
is this where you're going to tell us that you are a cyborg?
I really wish I was a cyborg. Like, you can just see so many cool things that you could do. I mean, you're the bionic woman, Jill.
That's it,
like,
I'm half titanium.
You do. Yeah. And look, I think that the rise of analog means that there's going to be a pushback against this saturation of AI slop and in slopification that we're getting from AI systems.
I don't want to push you on it, and as
shove me on it
as we come to wind up this incredible conversation. But 5 years window.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
So in 5 years, it's highly likely we will all have things in our house called nearables. So nearables.
Nearables.
So there at the moment, people have wearables. The thing coming now is we're going to be moving over the next few years from the agentic AI systems that we have now, which are personas that people build to perform functions in work, play, whatever you want to do. We're going to be moving to very passive monitoring and interactive AI systems that we will refer to as ambient AI. Now, we have some experience of ambient AI already. Anywhere that's got CCTV, for example, they can now take the footage from those cameras and put them through an AI system.
And face match.
Well, we don't even need your face to work out who you are. We can work out who you are from where you come out of the house, where you get on the train, where our phones are now 1 centimetre accurate location in terms of where we are. So geofencing of our devices is really easy. We're literally sleepwalking into this surveillance state. Facial recognition is something people have to approve, but I don't need your face to work out that you're Jill Hicks. As a human, I know you're Jill Hicks when I see you at the end of the street, right? And that is where the AI is going. But not only that, we can actually pick up neurodegenerative diseases. So we'll be able to predict people who might have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's years before they show any kind of significant effects from that disease, which for a disease like Alzheimer's, and I'm not a medical doctor, but what I understand of it, a disease like Alzheimer's, the earlier you can get on the treatments, the better the health outcomes. So imagine now we're going to be entering this world of preventative medicine. And in fact, there is actually already, where the heck is it? There is already somewhere in the country, it's Western Australia, they've got an MP at state government and she's the MP for preventative health. She's wonderful. The first in the world.
How wonderful.
So we're going to go from this, AI is watching us, AI is trying to sell us things, to AI is creating digital twins, AI is looking for inferred opportunities to engage with us around personal health. When you wake up in your smart bed with the nearable lamp that's been monitoring you, and the bed that's been monitoring you, and the bed that's been cooling you down so a hot flush didn't wake you up in the middle of the night. It's been stopping your partner from snoring by raising the bed head so that they don't snore from sleep apnea. It's been watching your heart rate variability. It's been picking up your cardiovascular system. And you go and then stand in front of your smart mirror in the bathroom, which gives you your age, your blood oxygen, your happiness rating. You've then got your smart shower that's set to just the right temperature that you want it. You've got your humanoid robot that brings you the towel. You've got the chef arms in the kitchen making the eggs, and the smart fridge has already ordered some eggs that are coming in by drone from Woolies. And, then you've got your robot dog that doesn't need to go for a walk, but wants you to take it for a walk because it's part of your healthcare plan, your personalised healthcare dog. So this
in all of this
passiveness, it's all already here, just not evenly distributed, Jill.
With our wearables, our nearables, I hope we find some space to evolve in all our free time that's been created.
3-day work week. In 2012, a Japanese study was like 3-day work week is the peak human work week. That was from 2012. So that's like 14 years ago we've been saying.
The other 4 days we could just build our revolution.
Well, you can hang out with people and you can go to art galleries. You can engage with art, what it is to be human. Winston Churchill in World War II, when they were moving all of the stuff from the British Museum down into the Northern Line tunnels, someone would say, what on earth are you moving all of that museum crap into the tunnels for? And he goes, what do you think we're fighting for?
Yeah.
right? So I think we will get to the point where, and there will be, the next 10 years are going to be a transition before we get to normality, because there'll be people questioning, which is great, people pushing back, which is also fine, and people choosing how they want to have these technologies in their lives. But when we look at the aging population that we have here in Australia, to not have these technologies is to do a disservice to the dignity of the aging population in this country. And so what one person's, AI-enabled chatbot is another person's personal doctor. And so there's going to be ways in which these technologies are going to allow us to live longer, happier, healthier lives, but we're actually going to have more choice, not less, if we approach these technologies with literacy and the human at the table first, and think about the problem that you want to define and solve before you think about how you can sell a solution.
So for all our young people, don't despair. It isn't about the loss of jobs of the future. It's about being that human at that table.
The thing about anybody who's wondering, my kids are in school, what are they going to study? Where are they going to get jobs? Well, to be true, the best thing you can do is give your kids a broad horizon. And if you're thinking of applying to university, which I do highly recommend, because university isn't just about completing courses.
It helps
it's about
you learn
building,
how to think.
It helps you learn how to learn how to think, learn how to disagree, learn how to be disagreed with, mix with people that don't look like you, sound like you, are from the same country as you. So other than travel, which you and I are both big purveyors of, the other thing would be to look at doing a double degree rather than just a single subject degree. So, for example, you might want to go to the ANU and study aerospace engineering and French. Perfect. Or you might want to study, medical bioscience and structural engineering. Do it. Pick something that allows you to have those broad skills, because the broader the horizon of skills you have when you're younger, the more you can then choose what you want to do and hone those skills down. But I do recommend we always look at doing what they would call a creative subject as well as a STEM subject, because one of the things I've said this for years, coding is a language and should be taught in a language classroom. It's not a STEM subject. And so we know that kids who have refugee backgrounds, they've got more than one language at home, Indigenous Australian kids that have more than one language at home, they actually are better coders, and they are actually better at natural language interactions with artificial intelligence. People that are good at music have an ability to read code. So when we think about all the cybersecurity jobs, all of the ACO jobs, all of the intelligence jobs, there's
a world for us artists.
There's a world for artists, but not only is there a world for artists, there's a need for artists. I'm about to take part in a creative thing with a lovely Jessie Hughes from Leonardo AI. Now, Leonardo AI was acquired by Canva, but it's basically an AI that enables you to create visual art, like movies, storytelling, using artificial intelligence. And some people will be like, shock horror, what on earth are you doing? I can't draw for shizzle, right? But I have imagination where I want to put things down in vision, and I can't draw. So that's always stopped me, but now it's not. And now I'm creating my own kind of AI-backed AI clones is one of my business. So having me as an actual AI-enabled clone, Cath GPT, I'm calling that one.
I love it.
The ability to actually interact with me, even if I'm not there.
Yes.
Grief tech is on the rise. So my kids, after I die, will have a version of me that they can call and they can interact with, for example, should they feel the need to do that. And so looking
that's a whole other idea
thing.
Of legacy, isn't it?
Legacy, grief tech, the actual fact that most of us now will probably live to 100 or 120. Our health spans will match our lifespans. Therapies will come online that if you can survive the next 10 years, it's likely you'll hit 120 good years.
I love it.
Like, people are throwing money at this. And so we can take advantage of the fact that old rich men don't want to die. And so they're investing in longevity technology. But look, the future is bright. And when you think about the jobs that maybe the year I was born in 1979, what were the jobs that everyone was working? Where the jobs are that I'm doing now didn't exist in 1979. And such it will be in 30 years' time, when my kids are my age now, that the jobs that are on offer to them are nothing like the world. And what's the problem with that? Why are we so conservative in thinking, oh, crumbs?
And this is the beauty, isn't it? That I hear you loud and clear, that everything actually is what we make from what we imagine, and what we make possible and plausible from that imagination. Dr. Cath,
Dr. Hicks.
Dr. Catherine Ball.
Dr. Jill Hicks. You living legend.
It is a joy. It is always a joy. Thank you for sharing time. It is our most precious thing that we can ever possibly give. So thank you. And I think it always has to be continued because the future is a big subject.
It is. Let's come back to it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.